Hello and welcome to this fun tasting I've got lined up here. Now, this is my first tasting of 2020 for YouTube, and I want to explain a little bit about what we have going first. Uh, this is not how it's always going to look. The reason why it's set up like this, I don't have my normal microphone, I don't have the normal camera. My kid's sick, and I have had to work from home for the past week. My 1-year-old has the flu. This has not been a very fun time, but he's on the mend, getting better, and back to sucking his thumb and like flipping over dog bowls. So he is getting much better, but still it kind of limits me what I'm able to do. But one thing that I learned from Daniel from Whiskey Tribe on YouTube is like it doesn't matter what you put out, you have to be consistent. And Fridays have kind of been my day. And so every Friday you can expect something. Starting next Friday, you're going to have the you're going to have the Fred Minnick Show, which is basically my podcast. The first episode is Lindsay L. I'll have a spot for you to subscribe in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribing, by the way, to this YouTube. All the future videos will look much better than this one. But to be consistent means you have to be consistent. And what I have here, I have 3 things to taste with 3 different glasses. And I'll explain as to why I have different glasses for each one. And I've got El Tesoro Tequila, the extra Anejo, and this is a $99, so it's a $100 bottle. It's been aged for 5 years in bourbon barrels. So tequila is something I love, and I drink it in many different ways, but this is sipping tequila. So when it's been in oak for that long, the intent is for you to sip it. And I have Medrano, which this is a Medrano. I've heard it pronounced a lot of different ways, but this is a spirit that is from Portugal. Now, I picked this up when I was in Portugal for covering it for Bourbon Plus. If you haven't seen my article on cork, please make sure you're subscribing to Bourbon Plus. You can go to bourbonplus.com to go check that out. But I found this little brandy. It's basically made out of what is the equivalent to a strawberry in Portugal. It's a fascinating spirit, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to break this down and talk about it. And then I've got something in a box here that I'm going to open up and taste. So first, we are going to start with the tequila. You can see that age. You can see the used bourbon barrels definitely imparted some color there. You know, the reason why I'm using this glass is because this is going to be this is a more friendly kind of Scotch glass. And I find that tequilas tend to nose very similar to a lot of Scotches. And so I wanted a glass that had a lot of surface, a lot of area for the aromatic properties to kind of fly up. Because sometimes with tequila, if the stem, if it's too short from the liquid to the nose, sometimes you kind of like overpower your nose. And so with that much room there, I tend to get quite a bit more. And so this is El Tesoro Extra Anejo. The nose is very peppery. Definitely getting that bourbon barrel oak smell. It's not overpowering. So a lot of times when there's an extra Anejo with the tequila, they tend to overpower the oak, and the oak will dominate it, and you can't really smell the agave. That's not the case here. You get a lot of those beautiful agave notes. Oh, that is just gorgeous. You can hear my dog walking over here. That's really gorgeous. So it's got all this beautiful spice and saltiness. and there's a creamy layer to it. Um, this is just kind of owning my palate. So this El Tesoro Extra Anejo is really walking a fine line of complexity, butter, creaminess all around the palate. There is some sweetness there. I'm definitely getting some of that vanilla caramelization from the barrel on the tip of my palate. But mostly this is an extraordinarily complex, beautiful tequila. Big fan of this. I highly recommend it. Even at $100, people always say, like, is it worth the money? Well, I think I can only speak for myself. I would spend $100 on this for sure. And if I was ranking this, I would definitely put it in the mid 90s. This is fantastic tequila. So, Medrano is really, this is a spirit that we don't have really a classification for here in the United States. In Portugal, they don't really have one either. This is basically for decades. This is what people made in their homes. This is like basically this was homemade liquor for a long time. But with the boom of like craft distilling around the world, you started seeing some Portuguese come forward and make some of this great spirit. And this is the name of the distillery. I will do my best to pronounce it. They told me when I was in Portugal, but I'm sure I'm going to butcher this. Larache. Laracha. Kind of reminds me of La Cucaracha. Remember that song? La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha. Yeah, they don't want me to. They probably don't want that comparison to the liquid. So when I tasted this in Portugal, I did not taste this one, but when I tasted this spirit in Portugal, I remember being wowed by how good it was for really an eau de vie. And again, I bought this in Portugal, or it was gifted to me. I bought a bottle in Portugal, and I had a bottle given to me, and I don't remember which one this is. But you can see there is no language in English. So this is only sold in Portugal, as far as I know. And I believe this is the first any kind of review this particular product has ever received. So Laracha, Medrano, and this is made in the Algarve region, which Algarve is an incredible area of Portugal that is filled with tourists. Woo! Funky! So the proof on this is going to be 92 proof. Again, this is basically comes from a fruit that is very similar to strawberries. I'm going to put a link to the definition of this particular spirit in the show notes. So this is very funky. You can tell that the distillation here extracted a lot of that funkiness of strawberry. Strawberry, when it is fermented or distilled, it yields a very kind of funkiness. It's very different than it tastes. It like extracts out, some of the what I would consider probably the deep seeds of that strawberry. Anytime you taste a white spirit, you're looking for flaws, and there's no flaws on this. And the reason why I use this glass is that it would allow, this is the kind of glass that I really like for unaged spirits, because you don't really need a stem. I like to be close to it, and it's similar in shape of the Glencairn, but it's not the Glencairn. And so I got good nose on there, quick, easy access on my palate. It's a nice, clean, funky, unaged spirit, and I like it. If you are a student of spirits, I highly recommend, checking it out. I think you may enjoy it, but it's not something that you need to fly to Portugal and go get. But this is the sort of thing that I would like to get this in the hands of a creative bartender and say, make me some cocktails, because this has got some fun flavors to it, very similar to like some of the rum funks that we taste and everything. So if you know a talented bartender, this could be like the one of the best gifts you could possibly get them, because it's got some funk. I really like this. I like it a lot. Now, it's a what's in the box kind of scenario. Like I don't know what this is. This was I had the tag ripped off, so I won't know who it's from until I open it. And you can see I use my trusty wine key here to open this up. And we have a bottle of Cedar Ridge. Okay, so Cedar Ridge is a really nice distillery in Iowa. They make all their own bourbon. They don't source. They have done a really good job of competing with Kentucky bourbon in the Iowa market. In fact, it is the number 3 selling. It is the number 3 selling whiskey in Iowa. Think about that for a second. Iowa is not a small state, and in order for you to be number 3, you're gonna have to be pretty good. But of course, Iowans want to support Iowans. There's no better example of that than with the Slipknot whiskey number 9, which won my best celebrity whiskey of 2019. They partnered with them. Slipknot's a very powerful heavy metal band that is, from Iowa. And because I didn't know what was in the box, I just wanted to get a basic shot glass. This is a little basic shot glass that I had. Obviously, if I had my druthers, I would have used knowing what this is, I would have used a Glencairn. Now, let's see if there's any details on the bottle that might help us understand a little bit what it is. Okay, so this is SP1, batch 16309, bottle 41. It is 115 proof. Out of memory, I don't recall their mash bills, but I do know that they are rye, so they're corn, rye, and barley, and that they use Iowa corn. So in Cedar Ridge, right out of the barrel, which it sounds like this is basically bourbon right out of the barrel, is usually really, really good. Now I'm not seeing an age statement here, but based on the batch number, it says it's 16309. I'm going to guess that 16 was the year that it was distilled. And by law, if you don't have, if your liquid is under 4 years old, you have to, state that on the bottle. So I'm going to have to make the assumption that this is 4 years old. Again, I just pulled this out of the box, so there may be some notation inside the box, but instead of digging through it, I'm going to make the assumption that this is 4 years old. Now I'm going to get to tasting this. Let's see here, so you can have a good look, a little bit of that top bottle. That color is definitely that color is definitely an indicator of its time in the barrel. You can even see that there hasn't been any filtration there. You can see a little bit of a flocking, just a touch. So there's no chill filtration on that as my assumption. On the nose, it's very caramelly, cornbread, and some kind of syrup, like a maple syrup or like a pancake, like a pancake syrup. I'm a big fan of pancakes. I can't eat as many as I used to because, for God's sake, they go straight to my hips, and I'm already a fatty, so I'm trying to cut back on my pancakes. Oh man, these guys are doing some great stuff. This bourbon is absolutely fantastic. It hits on my palate with all of the flavors of a cask strength product, just pounding right there in the middle and just walking on the way back. It's got nutmeg. It's got cornbread, brown sugar, and then it's got like this whole cast of like rye bread and a little bit of like raisins in there. This is really good. I like this a lot, and I would like to see more cask strength coming out of Cedar Ridge. If you follow me on Instagram, you may recall a moment where I was at the distillery and I basically was chastising them for not putting out more cask strength whiskey, simply because their main line is at 80 proof, and I don't believe, as a whiskey drinker, 80 proof gets the job done. So maybe they sent this bottle to say, "Hey, look, they're doing that cask strength like you wanted. Here's a bottle." So this did come from them apparently, and I just opened it out of the box, tasted it, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now, if you know how I review, I only review things after I've tasted it 3 times. I won't give it a score right now, but this Cedar Ridge Iowa Bourbon Whiskey cask strength is definitely going in the right direction. So that'll do it for this Friday's tasting. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you are subscribing. Click subscribe down there at the bottom. Subscribe to my free drinks newsletter. Check out my new podcast, The Fred Minnick Show, and of course, Bourbon Pursuit, Bourbon Plus, and follow me on social media. Until next week, cheers. This is really good.